Cloninger moves on in, and he scores!
He's gonna learn today.
What's happening, everybody, and happy whatever day it is. It's almost Valentine's Day, but you're listening to the Pod Street Bullies. I'm just happy we're podcasting tonight. I'm going to have some fun with this discussion. My name's Derek.
And I am John, and I don't know what I've gotten myself into tonight.
It's going to be a good one. I can promise you that. We've got a couple games here to look at. We've got some interesting trends we're seeing with the Flyers that both of us are going to discuss, break down, what have you. And we're going to talk about a hot topic on the blue line. And by hot topic, I mean one guy who just came back out of the lineup, Shane Gostisbehere.
Yep.
We're going to break down that. We're going to break down an interesting article from ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports minus hockey. And
right.
It should make for an interesting show. So, without further ado, unless you'd like to ease into this with a funny story like you typically do.
I mean, have you watched any of the XFL this weekend?
I did. I watched that Seattle DC game.
Nice. I watched the New York Guardians game today.
How'd that go?
I mean, the football was but the logo is badass. It's a badass logo. The helmets, yeah, I'm definitely willing to give it a shot. I think it's cool that it's not the NFL brand of football.
That's what they should be marketing it towards. I completely agree. I love that.
Yeah, it's just something different. Like, I don't feel like I'm watching, like, crappier NFL football. Like, I don't think the product is as great, but it's also week one. But I think some of the rules are kind of cool.
Oh, the kickoff rule I think is amazing. I said that on my Twitter last night, or yesterday during the day. I love the kickoff rule.
What about the whole extra point thing?
That's unique, and I think that those little things are what's going to really separate themselves from the NFL. Just the interesting little, or
the punting thing. Did you see that with the punting?
I didn't.
So
no.
if you kick a punt and it goes past the 35-yard line and goes out of bounds, the ball automatically goes to the 35-yard line. Oh. So what it does is it encourages teams to go for it on fourth down instead.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, so it's not like a big field placement game. Like, you can tell that they just want as much offense as possible.
Oh, yeah.
Really, I mean, the Guardians game or whatever was like 23-10. That didn't really work in their favor, but maybe they'll get there.
I love the access to the players, though. Like, the reporters, it could literally – I saw somebody tweet it out, and it's something along the lines of, like, some guy misses, like, a game-winning field goal, and a reporter can literally just walk right up to the kicker and be like, so you just blew the game. Tell me how you feel, you know? I love that.
Yeah, it's all kind of out there. I mean, the coaches, you can hear what they're saying, which they might want to shut up a little bit because they're like giving away all their strategy and plays.
Oh, yeah. How long until a team gets accused of cheating because they're listening to the broadcast?
Right, because they DVR'd it.
Exactly.
Just like all right. Well, should we go into hockey talk?
Yes, let's talk about hockey. Let's talk about the games that happened this week. The first game, we had Detroit. Should have won that game, did win that game.
And they did.
3-0. Elliott with a shutout. Lawton, Hayes, Niskanen all had goals. Awesome. Great start to the week. Everybody's happy. Then Thursday night happens, and we're left wondering, what the hell did we just watch?
I mean, so we were recording Pod Street Prospects when this game started.
Oh, we should have just made it like a 3-hour-long show where we didn't have to watch any of that game.
There was a goal, 13 seconds into it or something?
Oh, yeah. 13 seconds into the game, and I couldn't tell you who. I want to say Blake Coleman.
Who cares who it was?
Positive. Exactly. No one cares. They lost. It sucked.
I mean, but the thing is, man, it's like that's the Flyers of old, right? When they get taken out right away, when they forget that the game starts, when it does, they don't ever pick things back up. And that's what we saw on, Thursday night?
Thursday night. That snowball formed and just kept rolling down the hill, getting bigger and bigger, and you end up losing 5-0 to a team you should have beat.
Right. I want to save the meat of that for kind of what we're going to talk about once we recap all the games. But I think that if you lose this game 4-3, all right, should you have won it? Yes. But at least, you were competing and fighting for it. Like 5-0 to the Devils, man.
Oh,
it just can't do that.
You can't even really make any excuses. It's like you said, you go into this game, lose 4-3, tightly contested game. Even if it's like an overtime loss or a regulation loss, the fact remains you still put up a fight. There was no fight in this team whatsoever.
No.
They rolled over.
It was nasty.
Yeah, and if, then we get to Saturday night.
Right.
And there's a completely different team. It's like they come out onto the ice, score, and you're like, who are these guys? Who are these the same guys we just saw Thursday night lay an egg against New Jersey? Yeah,
I mean, and what was it, 1-1 after the first?
I believe so, yeah.
All of a sudden, we just unloaded on the Capitals. Mm-hmm. Claude Giroux remembered how to play hockey. That was nice.
3-point night. I mean, long overdue.
Right. Somebody put a tweet on earlier in the day and was like, all he needs is 3 points and he'll get to 800. And I'm like, well, good, you could do math, but there's no way that this guy's getting 3 points tonight. And he did.
It's like Shooter McGavin, like, congrats, you can count.
Right. No, but I know it seems like I'm making fun of the tweet, but I really didn't think it was going to happen.
Yeah, well, given his, how he's been doing lately, no one would have guessed that he'd have scored 3 points that night.
Right. But one thing that I noticed too, and I hate to do this because I'm kind of a negative Nancy when it comes to this stuff, but like everybody's scoring, right? And they're talking about their goal totals. And it's like, man, nobody's got over 20 goals on this freaking team.
Oh, yeah.
What the hell?
And that could be construed in a good way because it's evenly distributed. I mean, everybody's contributing.
I mean, it could be – I'd still like to have one person over 20 goals at this point in the freaking season.
It's going to happen. I'm not worried.
But it should already be happening. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a little perplexing that no one's gotten over 20 goals. Like – You want something that's going to get this team over the hump? Whoop, there it is.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. They're going to score 20 goals. Like
I know,
multiple people on this team.
But I'm talking about right now.
I know. I'm not as concerned as you, I guess. But, the fact remains.
Pasternak's got like 900. Ovechkin's got like 43,000. Like we got like 18.
Austin Matthews scored his 40th the other night too.
I know.
If we're gonna talk,
wouldn't it be nice?
It would be. But if we're gonna continue this talk about goals, you had goals from James Van Riemsdyk, Michael Raffl, Konechny had one, Giroux had one, Couturier had two, and Aubé-Kubel with his first multi-point game for the Flyers. And you want to finish this sentence?
Iron Man Bobby Haig got the helmet.
That too. But Aubé-Kubel had a Gordie Howe hat trick.
Yeah, that too. We clearly didn't rehearse that because I didn't know where we were going.
But yeah, and this episode centers around Gostisbehere later on. But we're going to take a moment to just appreciate what we saw from Robert Haig that night.
Can we get a moment of silence for the chairman of the board?
Yes. Okay, moment's over.
All right.
Let's be honest. I mean, there was just that one sequence. He blocked, 2 shots from Ovechkin in Ovi's house. I mean, where Ovechkin was shooting from is his spot. That's his office. Haig blocked 2 shots. I think it was 2 shots. I'm not positive. The guts on that guy. Good Lord.
Yeah, I mean, he had a really good game. And then did you see the freaking clam that put the thing on Twitter where it was like, oh, I'm going to hate that he freaking dumped the puck in when he could have dumped it, passed it back to somebody.
The guy on Twitter, I think his name's like Get Pucks Deep or something, he mentioned, and he broke this down where it's him and I think it was Aubé-Kubel. Aubé-Kubel was covered. There were 2 other defenders. And he's like, what the hell did you expect him to do, especially at the end of a shift?
Right.
I have no problem with what he did there.
And he's not Ivan Provorov. He's Iron Man Bobby Haig.
Yeah, he's not Shane Gostisbehere from 2 years ago.
I put pucks deep.
But yeah, I know exactly.
Pucks deep.
Now you're going to get it, Bobby. I love when Kevin Hayes does that. I absolutely love when Kevin Hayes says that about Haig. It kills me every time. But I know who you're talking about, and I know the name of this gentleman. We all do, I'm assuming, at this point. But that was a poorly timed tweet on his behalf, and we'll chalk it up to that, I guess.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, but, we saw one team Thursday night, and we saw a completely different team Saturday night.
Right.
You're looking at a team that has gone into multiple games. This isn't just a one-time thing where they've gone in and beaten some of the best teams in the league. You look at games on the 15th of January, they beat St. Louis, the defending Cup champions, one of the best teams in the league. The very next night, they lose to the Montreal Canadiens. And it's happened throughout the season. I mean, there's plenty more instances. I won't bore you with it.
Right.
What?
Well, the Devils and the freaking Capitals.
Devils and Caps, exactly. I mean, what are we supposed to make of this team?
I mean, well, first of all, I don't know. I mean, you want to say that are they playing to their competition? Because on games that they should be winning, like the New Jersey Devils, they don't show up. But then when they play against the Capitals, right? And I mean, 7-2, like that's just not typical. But they do play very well against better competition. It's like they show up and then they dominate, which is fantastic. But I don't know if this team needs to take some meds to get them a little bit more even keel than this, drastic one side or the other thing. Because these games, like the losses against the Devils, are going to come back and bite them in the old rectum. I mean, I get that, in an 82-game season, you're going to lose to teams that are inferior to you. The Capitals do it, the Bruins do it, the Lightning do it. Everybody does it. But at the same time, they're in a much better playoff position than the Flyers. Like, the Flyers can't afford to lose these games.
They are tied with Carolina right now, and Carolina holds that tiebreaker for the last wild card spot. They have 22 regulation wins. The RW column. That's
right.
Yeah, regulation wins. Let's say.
You doing all right over there? Are you broken?
No, I'm not broken. I'm okay. I'm like trying because regulation and overtime wins. I guess. Carolina holds the tiebreaker. We'll leave it at that. So, same amount of points, same amount of games played. Carolina's got 32 wins. The Flyers have 30.
Derek's looking at the standings going, why is there a number stat for right wing on the freaking standings?
I'm like, they have 21 right wingers? Like, what the hell? GF?
Is that a tiebreaker?
I'm assuming for a while.
There's about 177 girlfriends. Good for them.
Hey, awesome.
All right.
That's it's phenomenal. Good for them. But the one thing, we spoke about this before we went on here, the one thing I'm noticing, the difference, I guess, and you might have a different reason than I do, but the biggest difference for me between the Flyers and the top teams, and I'm sure in the Western Conference, I haven't even looked at them yet, Washington. Tops in the Metro right now. Their away record, 20 wins, 6 losses, 1 overtime loss.
Yeah.
Boston leads the Atlantic. Their away record is 15 wins, 9 losses, 3 overtime losses. The Flyers' away record right now, 12, 13, and 3. They need to improve when they're on the road. And they're getting better.
Right.
But it needs to be more consistent.
I mean, I think I said this before, but I feel like it's all going to come back to that West Coast road trip. That road trip where it was like we were playing a bunch of inferior teams on the road and we could not get a win.
We got one win in that road trip. I mean,
one win. But it's like, you're going to give up these bad losses, but that was too many.
Yeah.
Then and there.
Oh, that West Coast road trip killed them. I mean, start in San Jose, you lose 6-1. Then you play and you barely win in overtime against Anaheim. Los Angeles, Vegas, Arizona, Carolina. The last 4 games, you drop all of them. The last one in overtime to Carolina. That extra 1 point would have been huge if they could have taken that from Carolina instead of seceding it to them.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and when you're a bubble playoff team, every game matters just a little bit more.
Oh, yeah.
You need to acquire all those points.
Yeah. And you look at when they came back from that road trip, and they had 3 of their next 4 at home. They beat Washington. They just lost to Tampa. That was the 1-0 game. And then they go on and beat Boston and St. Louis, only to drop the next one to Montreal.
Well, I mean, think about the game before Detroit, right? They beat Colorado 6-3.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
right?
This team...
They won that game, right? I'm not making that up.
6-3. They won that game. You're correct.
Yeah. Okay.
And Alex Lyon played well in that game, too. It's...
Right.
This, for so long, this team has played up to their competition, but also down. And we thought we were seeing glimpses of a new team this year.
Right.
I'm going to ask you this. Is this a different team? Is this truly a different team? Or is it discouraging seeing these guys kind of fall back into their old ways?
So it is a different team. It's a different team because you have a coach that's not going to accept this. You have people in power who are not going to be okay with this back and forth. They're going to do whatever it takes to make sure that they right the ship. And I think in certain ways they have. I think when it comes to player personnel, you have to look at the people, and I've said this a few times, look at the people who are on the roster of the teams of the past and who are on the roster now, and start to figure out maybe some of them are the issue. But I do think that this is a different team, especially if, now I don't want to jump too much, but if we get into the playoffs, now I know that's still an if we get into the playoffs, we are a dangerous team because we can beat any of these guys.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, you see it in plenty of years where lower seeded teams rise to the occasion, make it, deep into the playoffs. The Kings have done it.
Right.
The Blues just did it,
Yep.
The Flyers could be that next team to do that.
The Flyers did it once.
Yeah, they did back in 2010. I remember.
I mean, that was a long time ago when
I
we're
was
talking.
At 2 of those games. I was at Game 3 when Giroux scored that overtime winner, and I was at Game 6 when they lost that game, and Patrick Kane slid one right past Leighton. And I've been broken up with plenty of times, but I've never been that heartbroken.
Yeah.
That was rough.
That's pretty sweet. You got to go to 2 games.
I consider myself extremely lucky that I got to go to those games. My mom, I've mentioned this millions of times before, my mom and I share a passion for the Flyers, and that was my birthday present to her to go to one of those games. And the other one was just kind of like hey, the tickets are there, I've got the money, let's do it. And big help to my grandfather. My grandfather and I used to go to games as well when I was little. Different story anyways.
Right. But yeah, this team has proved that they can beat the better teams, and they do play to their competition, like the good teams too. So if they get into the playoffs, they could be dangerous. But the problem is that's still a big if.
It is. And if you want to look at it in its simplest form of the fact that they play better teams really well and play bad teams poorly, they have games remaining, I think more games remaining against decent squads, where you've got Florida twice coming up, Tampa, New York Islanders, Winnipeg, you've got Washington again. The list goes on. We could talk about it for a couple more minutes, but...
Right. And if we could talk about it for a second, these next 2 weeks are so critical.
Absolutely.
Look at this. You got, on Monday, you've got Florida at home. Then they go to Barclays and play the Islanders on the road the next day. Then they play Florida away. Yep. And then Tampa away. Mm-hmm. The next week, 2 games against Columbus, which could be huge. There's a lot of can't lose games coming up.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. You got to take at the very least, 1 from Florida. Maybe even push the next one into overtime to at least get 1 point.
And you have to beat the Islanders and Columbus twice. I don't care. You have to beat them. Yeah. You have to sweep those games.
Yeah. Florida's only 3 points behind Philadelphia right now, and the Islanders are 1 point ahead of them. Yep. That's the difference maker. They need to beat the Islanders, and that's proven tough for them this year. They blew that lead the last time they played them, if I remember correctly. I lost like 4-3 in overtime.
Right.
They're always a tough play.
And they're also only 2 points behind Columbus right now, too.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I mean, it's all still very tight.
It's a very tight race.
It's all still very tight.
It's a very tight race. The Metro Division is the toughest division in hockey. I'll stand by that statement. I'll die on that hill, however you want to describe it. I mean, you legitimately have the Islanders, Carolina, Philadelphia, Florida. They're all the top 4 wild card teams right now.
Florida's not in the Metro.
They're not, but 3 of those 4 teams are Metro teams.
Right.
You know, not the Atlantic has good teams. Boston, obviously, they're performing
they're top
better.
heavy.
Yeah, they are. Boston, Tampa, and Toronto. How many years in a row has it been that those 3 have won the Atlantic Division essentially in the top 3 positions?
Right.
You know, so the Metro, as far as I'm concerned, more than likely the top 2 spots are sealed at this point. Maybe not so much the second, but I think Washington's got the first spot locked up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pittsburgh, the way they've been playing and the fact that they've been injured and playing this well kills me. I hate it.
Drives me crazy.
I absolutely hate it.
I don't get it. I just don't get it.
They're I don't even know how they draft well because it seems like every year they're giving away their first round pick.
Right.
You know,
and Columbus, I mean, they're a division team, and I know you're not supposed to like your division teams, but like, it's kind of a cool story. The fact that this team lost so many key pieces over the offseason.
Mm-hmm. This shouldn't be happening.
And their starting goalie has been hurt.
Korpisalo's out. They've got Merzlikins and
would be great if you own the fantasy team that picked him up.
Yeah, well, you know what? That's what happens when you just don't pay attention.
Speak about, save me the excuses. We talk about dominant teams in the world. My fantasy team might be the most dominant team in all the land.
We are running short on time here, so you're going to have to shut your mouth. We have actual hockey to talk about.
And just to think that Jack Eichel wasn't on my roster to start the year, and Austin Matthews wasn't on my roster to start the year, how I bamboozled 2 schmucks to get those guys on my team.
Kids
and
at
I'm
home.
like 10 points ahead of second place.
If there are kids in the car or with you that are listening to this show, close their ears real quick. John, who did you blow to get those guys? I seriously want to know.
I will not tell. I keep those secrets to myself.
I can literally look back at the acquisition records. You know,
Well, one of them was, I got Eichel from you chump. I got, for a bag of peanuts.
Worth it.
How did that work out for you? You're on, 9th place?
I got a defenseman when I needed one, and he's a pretty damn good defenseman. Drew Doughty.
Right. Yeah, that worked out well for you.
Braden Shen's not doing too bad.
Dude, I've got, really quick, Jack Eichel, Austin Matthews, Alex Ovechkin, Elias Pettersson. Does it even matter who else I have? Roman Josi.
Mitch Marner, Miko Rantanen.
Mitch Marner. I don't have Miko Rantanen. I traded him for Austin Matthews.
You douchebag.
But I win. We might as well put a bow on this already. There's no way anybody's catching up to me.
What were we just talking about? How the lower seeded teams always happen to make some noise in the playoffs.
There is no playoffs in this, though.
I'm going to treat these last few weeks as playoffs, so get ready.
All right, good luck.
I'm coming for that first place ass.
All right.
Well, there's my
You're
one for
the
the
first
show.
person to call me that.
What, a douchebag?
No, first place ass.
I could have said fine piece of you-know-what, but I'd have been lying.
All right. Anyway, should we talk? What are we going to talk about now? Are we going to talk about Gostisbehere?
I think we should talk Gostisbehere. We've kind of beaten the dead horse as, it's about as dead as it's ever been. And with the Gostisbehere discussion, yeah, really, we're going to beat this one a little more. But so John pointed out this article that came out, I believe it was Thursday. It was the day. It was right before we went on for the Prospect show. ESPN, again, the worldwide leader in sports, aside from hockey, that these, I think it was it Wyshynski came up with this trade proposal?
Yeah, I think he put together an article that had a few trade proposals, and one of them had to do with the Flyers.
Yes, the only one that had to do with the Flyers. It's a trade between the Vegas Golden Knights and the Flyers. And the way it stands right now, this trade includes Shane Gostisbehere going to Vegas.
This is hypothetical, too, by the way. This is not a rumor. This is just an article piece.
Absolutely. I'm glad you prefaced it that way. Shane Gostisbehere would be traveling to Vegas, and we, in return, the Flyers, would get defenseman Braden McNabb, a 2020 second-round pick property of the Knights, and a 2021 second-round pick property of the New Jersey Devils. There are so many caveats to this trade that we're going to dive down right now. I sent out a thread on Thursday once I found out about this, detailing how I felt about it. We're going to talk about this right now and break this down. John, are you doing this trade if it's presented to you? Yeah?
Yeah.
You're doing this trade. Get out of here.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, well, because it's what? It's Ghost for Brandon McNabb. Is that
Braden.
Braden.
Yeah, Braden McNabb.
Braden McNabb and 2 second-rounders?
Yes, 2 second-rounders.
Uh-huh. Why not?
Okay. And I had that down as one of my biggest pros to this deal.
I mean, I think this is an overpay for Gostisbehere. This isn't realistic. No one's going to pay for this.
No, absolutely not.
Pay that for... Yeah, but I would do that deal in a heartbeat.
Oh, yeah. Not only is it a big overpay in the sense that Vegas is overpaying, but you get $2 million in cap relief right there.
Right.
And McNabb is off the books a year before Gostisbehere is. So, boom, that opens up cap for an off season where there's some players that need re-signed. We'll get into that here.
Right. I mean, he can kind of be like your next Justin Braun. I mean, I'm not too familiar with McNabb, but like when Braun leaves, McNabb can kind of fill that void, right?
Yeah. I mean, McNabb, when you're looking at it, he's 29, I think, late 20s, early 30s. So he's younger than Braun, a little older than Ghost.
I mean, more of like role.
Yeah,
like
role
what
on
he
the
does.
team. He's a defensive defenseman.
Yeah.
He's logging just under 20 minutes a night. So he logs big minutes for Vegas. And he won't wow you with his offensive numbers. He's got 9 points on the year, 2 of them being goals. My problem is the right now. If we're going to be making a run to try to get to the playoffs, are you content with 3 defensive defensemen in this lineup?
Well, listen, no. But if that's the only trade that we're going to that we're going to have for Ghost, I don't think keeping him does us any favors at this point. I'd rather him not be in the lineup, so I pretty much view it as someone we're not going to use anyway. Mm-hmm. So if that all of a sudden becomes McNabb, if he ends up sitting on the bench, then great. We've got cap relief. Maybe we can go out and make another deal. And we've also got 2 second-rounders that maybe we can go out and use to make a deal.
Now let's revisit this original trade. The 2 second-round picks in McNabb for Ghost. If you take away one of the second-rounders, do you still do the deal?
Yep.
Do you do it if you take away both draft picks?
No other deal on the table?
For the sake of this argument, no other deal on the table.
That one's harder.
See, I might.
Yeah, I might too. I was just going to say, because you save, what, $2 million a year?
$2 million, yep.
And
McNabb's 2.5.
1 year less.
Yeah.
Yeah. Listen, I think Gostisbehere's got to go. I'm pretty much willing to take anything just to get him off the books at this point.
Yeah.
I hate saying that because he was one of my favorite players when he was,
He was good. A lot of our favorite players.
Right.
I mean, the year he had 2 years ago was one of the best years the Flyers defenseman has had in a while.
Right.
Not ever. I'm not going to say that and discount the things that Mark Howe has done for this team.
Right.
But, not a bad year.
But it just doesn't matter anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this guy doesn't get any more passes. You've had plenty of time to fix things. You haven't been able to fix things. Maybe his career's not over, but he needs a fresh start, and the Flyers need to move on from him.
Yeah, and they get a defenseman in return that logs big minutes, which is good. And
right.
Like I said earlier, we were going to touch on the year that the contract expires. It would expire after the 2021-2022 season when the Flyers are set to re-sign the likes of Joel Farabee, Morgan Frost, and Isaac Ratcliffe off of their ELCs. So they're probably going to get a raise. Farabee may get a substantial raise.
Right, Frost, too. You don't know what next year's going to bring,
Exactly. And that's not even the creme de la creme of that crop of potential free agents. Couturier and Giroux are due for new contracts that offseason as well.
Well, yeah. I mean, Couturier I worry about.
Yeah, I'm more worried about Couturier than Giroux just because Couturier is making $4.5 million right now. And
Right.
he's getting a big raise. And I would not doubt his salary after that year being around double what that is.
Yeah. No, I mean, so like that trade to me sounds great. I mean, I would take it 10 times out of 10. But I think the interesting part about this trade proposal is it says two things. One, Greg Wyshynski hasn't watched Shane Gostisbehere play hockey since 2 years ago.
Let's hope Vegas hasn't either.
And two, right? People's assumption of what Shane Gostisbehere's value is just isn't real anymore.
No. That's, like you said a couple times now, this is a massive overpay for a guy who has done nothing.
Nothing. Right. I mean, and people could go, well, you could put him on a contender, but he can't even crack the lineup on a team trying to get into the playoffs.
Yeah.
Like a team like Toronto isn't going to want him. They're going to go out and get somebody better.
Yeah.
You know, they don't want a liability going into the postseason. They want someone that's going to shore up their blue line.
Toronto would go after a guy like Braden McNabb. It wouldn't surprise me because he seems like a safer bet when he's in the lineup than a guy like Gostisbehere.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, I keep going to this is more of an off-season type deal. Like, I can't think of anybody that wants this guy
Yeah.
to, you know, for their push to the playoffs.
Yeah. I was on the fence initially about this until, like I said, I did a little bit of digging and figured out, you know, the implications of when the contract expired, this and that, yada, yada, yada. I really am starting to like this deal more and more the way I look at it now because when his Braun's contract runs out at the end of the year and so does Haig's. So what that frees you up to do is Braun's contract frees up $3.8 million. Haig's frees up about $1 million, let's say. So $4.8 million. That you could use to go out and get a serviceable 6th or 7th defenseman. Pair him with McNabb on that bottom pair because McNabb is a defensively sound defenseman. Go out and get somebody that's a little more risky with the puck, you know, that can play some offense on defense.
Right.
Hopefully a little better than Gostisbehere. And it just frees up money and it's good. And if Braun's not working out, which at this point I'm on the fence even about thinking about bringing him back.
Yeah, I don't think that the plan will be to.
No, and especially if they go out and get McNabb for Gostisbehere there, I'm okay with McNabb. It's basically a substitute for Braun next year.
Right. You know, I think people need to look at Gostisbehere trades like this. It's not about what you're getting in return, it's what you're getting rid of. Right now, when you're trading Gostisbehere, it's about getting rid of him. You're not going to get something like, hey, let's get a scoring winner in return for Gostisbehere. Like, that's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
This is like, hey, let's free up the space and maybe see if we can bring somebody else in.
And one of the guys at PSN, Eric Reese, wrote a piece about the people available potentially for this type of trade and if Gostisbehere would be enough to get these guys. If these GMs are looking at it the way we are, you know, a realist's way of looking at things,
right?
Gostisbehere is just not worth it. You're throwing in picks. You're throwing in a prospect, especially if we're talking guys like Chris Kreider, these big-name guys out on the market right now. And even for guys like Kasperi Kapanen, like if I was Toronto, I'd be like, yo, you want us to take on this type of cap and look at the situation we're in? Man, you're taking, you know, somewhat of an albatross of a contract from us too.
Right.
If Dubas was smart, which I'm assuming he is.
I mean, I look at Gostisbehere right now as like one of those Arizona deals, like over the offseason in the past where it's like, hey, we'll give you Gostisbehere for like a 5th round pick. You know, you just want to have him there. That'd be great. Like,
oh yeah,
there's just no trade value to this guy right now, and he's not even like you can package him with something else really because of the cap hit.
Yeah.
I mean, 4.5 isn't a whole lot, but it's still 4.5.
And when you're looking at it too, the teams with the most cap space right now, Colorado, New Jersey, Columbus, Ottawa, the Islanders, the Kings, which one of those teams is going to reach out and say, we want Shane Gostisbehere?
Right. Nobody.
You know?
Unless they think that they could save him.
3 of those 5 I just named are division rivals. The Islanders, the Blue Jackets, the Devils. They don't,
right.
They're not going to do business with the Flyers because they're going to overvalue them. Colorado.
And the worst thing the Flyers could have is he goes to like the Islanders and plays well.
Yeah. And in that case, it's like, whatever, and what are we going to get in return from the Islanders? Because they're not going to want to give up, a decent return. We're not going to get a decent return for Gostisbehere from the Islanders because they're in a playoff spot right now as well.
Right.
They're in a push for it at least. These cap-strapped teams are the ones that would go out and try to make a move to get Gostisbehere, but they can't afford him unless you give up another bad contract in their eyes.
And he doesn't fill a void for many teams who at least need a void filled at this point.
Oh, yeah.
Like, maybe Detroit could use him, but what the hell does Detroit need any, boost for?
Yeah, and a lot of Detroit's better players are younger players. The type that you're going to build around, so they're not giving those guys up.
Well, yeah, and rebuilding teams aren't looking to get guys with term that seem to be on the decline.
No.
So that takes away a lot of,
Yeah, and you mentioned Arizona. Arizona doesn't have any projected cap space right now. So
that's new for them, huh?
Currently, they have $39,000.
Hey, now.
Just under 40.
Yeah. I mean, they've got quite some, they've got what, Kessel and Hall. I mean, those guys probably take a decent amount of money.
Yeah, well, apparently, Hall may not be completely off the trade rumor mill right now.
I know.
Which
that'd be wild, right?
How? I mean, you go out and get this guy to expect to make this push and get to the playoffs, and you're not even going to use him for the rest of the year? Like, what are you going to try to get for him?
I don't know. I mean, the trade deadline is a weird time, and it's not as crazy as it used to be. Like, gone are the days of people just throwing away first-round picks for players. It's just not happening anymore.
I miss those days.
Yeah. But
the Holmgren days.
The Rangers, right? The Rangers are probably going to get another first-round pick. Like, they got a first-round pick for Hayes.
Yeah.
They're going to get something, probably more for Kreider.
Yeah, and you look at it now, projected cap space, they've got a shade under 3. Actual cap space, they've got just under $10 million in cap space. They've got cap space. Like that. And you just signed Panarin. You just signed Trouba. Go out. Why not? I know they're not doing well right now. Go out and ship a first-rounder. I mean, their first-rounder will be...
No, they're not going to ship a first-rounder. They're still selling.
Yeah, and if they get another first-rounder and they get like a lottery pick, like in the top 3, maybe even 5, maybe they get a guy that slots into the lineup next year, and you've got a strong core of young kids.
Yeah. I mean, that team in a few years, if they can keep all those kids together, is going to be pretty dangerous.
Oh, yeah.
But, so much can happen from here now, and we're not going to talk about the Rangers because they suck.
Yeah, the Rangers can, bite me.
But, yeah, I mean, I think to kind of put the Gostisbehere thing to bed, man, it's like this guy just he doesn't belong on the team anymore. He provides nothing for me except frustration.
Yeah.
And I think that they just need to find a plan to get rid of this guy. And would McNabb be great? Sure. But I don't think that deal is going to happen.
No, I don't think it will either. And like we've both stated here a couple times, gross overpay. I really don't think Vegas makes that deal. Vegas has just about $2 million in cap space.
Right.
So realistically, could they make this trade happen? Sure. But then that puts them right against the cap, and I don't know what their situation is, who they have to re-sign. They've got, let's see here. They've got Cody Eakin, Ryan Reeves, Chandler Stevenson, Thomas Nosek, Will Carrier, their entire blue line, Nick Holden, John Merrill, Zach Whitecloud, Derek England, all free agents.
Oh, wow.
For next year. Not to mention Malcolm Subban, their backup goalie. So they've got a lot of guys they need to re-sign, which it's a decent amount of money off the books. 3.85 here, 2.775 there.
And some of those guys they're going to look for upgrades too.
Yeah, they could find an upgrade over a Ryan Reeves. They could find one over a Thomas Nosek or Will Carrier. But it's not the type of risk I'd be willing to take giving Gostisbehere $4.5 million for the next, 2-3 years? That's... Yeah.
I got a question for you.
Okay.
What would be the bare minimum you would take for Gostisbehere? So you're Chuck Fletcher, and somebody's like, I know you just want to get rid of him. This is what I'm going to give you. What's like your bare minimum?
You got to get a defenseman. I mean, and you might...
So you need a player.
I would prefer a player. That's a preference. Bare minimum, it's going to be a type of pick, and it's probably going to be a mid-round pick. But if you're looking...
so give me a freaking number, dude. I mean, stop with the generalizations. Give me something specific. Holy crap. Kick a bare minimum, you'd be like, well, kind of.
Bare minimum, 5th round.
5th round. Yeah, that's the number that came to my head, too.
Yeah.
5th round pick.
It's over the middle of the road, but not too far to like a 7th round pick, because a 7th round pick is literally another GM saying, here you go. Just being a jerk, essentially.
And if we got a player that eliminated cap space, fine. But I don't want to trade somebody's, crap for our crap.
No.
I'd rather just get a late round pick.
Yeah. Now, ideally, and I'll flip the script here, what are you looking for in a return for Gostisbehere?
I view it a little bit differently than you. I just look at it as getting him off the books. If we can get him off the books and we have money to play with come off-season time or even trade deadline time, depending on when they go and make this trade. So I look at it more as if we could just get a draft pick.
Okay.
Say you get a 3rd round pick for him. I think I don't know that I don't know, but let's say you can get a 3rd round pick for him. Okay, you get rid of him. You've got the 4.5 off the cap, right?
Yep.
You've got cap space, and you've got another draft pick, not to use to draft somebody. Maybe you can use that in a deal to now go out and get somebody who's actually going to help this team with the cap space that you've just created. So if you could do a deal like that, maybe like a week before the trade deadline, and then give you a little bit of time to see what else is out there. Mm-hmm. You're playing with borrowed assets, essentially.
Yeah. And, let's be honest, as the GM of the team, you're Chuck Fletcher. If you know what your goal is, you're also reaching out to teams ahead of a potential Gostisbehere trade saying, hey, listen, this is the interest I have in Gostisbehere, and this is what I could potentially get back. If that deal were to go down and we get back what we anticipate, if I packaged this, whatever it may be, can I get this guy? Right. You're dealing in hypotheticals, which is never set in stone, but it's something. It's something.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and I just look at it like this. Any player that the Flyers are going to get for Gostisbehere isn't going to be somebody that they want. They're going to be somebody that they're tolerating just so they can get rid of Gostisbehere's contract. So I'd rather just get a draft pick. Like, heck, if it's a 4th round pick, fine.
Yeah, it's something, like you said, and it clears up $4.5 million in cap space. But ideally for me, I'm looking for a defenseman in return because, one, the only guy you really have to slide into a Gostisbehere role is Mark Friedman. But then you're taking him from a Lehigh Valley team, which has been underperforming, and I know you're not very high with Lehigh Valley. I get that, and I get that argument. But do you feel comfortable then with Mark Friedman as your 7th defenseman, maybe alternating with Haig or Myers, whoever it may be?
I mean, I don't know. Probably not, but I don't know if it moves the needle that far back as for Gostisbehere. I mean, maybe I'm being over dramatic on him, but I don't find him to be reliable at all. Like, I mean, what's the difference between him and Friedman at this point? We might get a little bit something more from Friedman. But again, if you go out and you get rid of Gostisbehere's contract and cap space, maybe you can go and pick somebody else up. You probably got a better chance of getting someone to shore up your blue line, especially your seventh defenseman realm, than going to get like a scoring winger.
Yeah.
So who knows?
Yeah, and if that's the case, honestly, there's worse options out there than a guy like Braden McNabb with Vegas.
Right.
So getting McNabb back in return for Ghost or, whatever, again, that deal's not happening because Vegas isn't going to I can't help but laugh at that deal. Good God.
Yeah. Yeah, never mind. Nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
So
nope.
Consensus is now that we just need to move on from Ghost. We need to move on from his contract.
Right. I'll take 2 tickets to Fun Zone at this point for Shane Gostisbehere.
Yeah, what's that room that the Flyers have where you can hit stuff?
Oh, you can break stuff?
Yeah. I'll take 2 tickets to that. I'll go in there, have some fun.
Like $20 for 2.5 minutes.
Yeah, so buy me like a 5-minute ticket. We'll call it even.
There you go.
So, put the bow on the Gostisbehere discussion here. Moving ahead, this week there's 4 games on the slate.
We did this already.
I know we did this already, but I'm posing this in a different way. So we're going to have some fun with this. This is when, we try to text each other during the show and get this straight, but I also didn't really feel like explaining this via text. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at this. It's a 4-game week ahead. 2 games against the Panthers, 1 against the Islanders, 1 against Tampa.
Sure.
Realistically, for the Flyers to keep pace, what's the end result of this week ahead? Wins, losses, what's the record in these 4 games?
That's good. I think you have to win 2, get points in 3.
Okay.
I think you need to win the game against the Islanders.
Okay.
And you need to win a game in Florida.
Yep.
And then pick up a point, preferably in Florida, or Tampa.
Okay.
But I think you've got to get 3 in 3 of the games. You have to have some sort of points.
Yeah.
2 wins and a overtime.
You look at it this way. You've got the first game against Florida at home. You're leaving on just a little 3-game stretch.
Yep.
So leave a good taste in the mouth of the Philly fans. Take 1 against Florida, you win that one. You move on to
My worry is winning that game and then losing the Islander game. Maybe I'm here on Long Island and I don't want to lose to the freaking Islanders. But that's just not a game we can lose.
You're right. Now, keep in mind, Carter Hart may be back in time for that game.
Yep.
May be back for it. We don't know yet. Hopefully the recovery goes well. He doesn't come back too soon. But for argument's sake, we're going to say the Flyers take the game against Florida. Let's say they take the game against the Islanders too. Right there, you're 2-0-0 in the first 2 games. You go down to Florida. You're playing the Panthers. I think they need to, at the very least, take this game into overtime.
Yep. So far, I've said all that.
So 2-0-1. And then if you lose the Tampa game, you go 2-1-1. Like you said, points in 3 games.
Yep.
I think this is just, being a little more elaborate with it on my part because I'm a dork.
Okay.
I like doing the hypotheticals. This is fun for me.
And you didn't get it. You just needed to break it down a little bit more for yourself. I get it.
No, I got it. I just wanted to break it down.
No, you didn't.
John will always tell you that he's the smarter one.
Oh, I am the smarter one.
Yeah, he's right. But you're exactly right. They need, at the very least, 5 points out of this trip, out of a possible 8.
Right.
Because at that point, you beat, if you beat Florida and you beat the Islanders, you beat Florida at least once, you get 3 out of 4 points against Florida on this trip, on this stretch, I should say. That's good.
Then I think if you set it up that way and you lose to Tampa, right? It's like get that loss out of the way before you play Columbus. Because again, those are games that you really can't afford to walk away with 0 points.
You're right. Columbus is too close in the standings, much similar to Florida and New York, you need those points. And you've got a home and home against Columbus. So presumably you probably end up splitting those, maybe getting 3 points instead of just 2. Who knows? But these are winnable games for the Flyers. We know that.
Yeah.
We can just hope they follow through.
One can only hope, man. One can only hope.
You're absolutely right.
The Flyers are not a team that you bet on. Let me tell you.
No, I to this day I still have problems with the odds and the over unders and teams that are favored plus 160 and all that BS. John hasn't gotten to me yet with that, but
dude, I don't really betting hockey is a little confusing for me because I bet horses and it's pretty simple, at least to me. But like the whole puck line thing or whatever, I'm like
the money line. I see it in our previews.
It's called the puck line now.
Okay, and that would make sense.
Or is that new? If a gambling aficionado who listens to us wants to explain these things in layman's terms to us, that'd be great. But I don't get it.
If there are any fellow degenerates out there that want to describe the process to us, we would greatly appreciate it. But that, folks, has been all that we have desired to delve into this week. So
this is all I have to give.
That's John's weekly song.
I can live.
Never disappoints.
If I could give the world.
If you could take a break, maybe from singing, and tell these fine folks listening where they can find us.
I have to give.
I want to take this show from you at this point. Please, for the love of God, just let everybody know where they can find us.
You can find us at PodSTBullies on Twitter. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Podbean, Spreaker, Stitcher.
All your favorite podcasting apps.
Pod
what, John?
Muncher, Podrod, the whole pod family.
Oh yeah. We're out there. You'll find us. We're on YouTube as well.
Oh, YouTube?
Yes.
Too?
Oh, yeah.
That's an interesting place to listen to a podcast.
I get it. Like, if you're at work and you can't have your phone out, but you can pull up like a, Google Chrome tab and just keep it on in the background. I do it sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never listened to anything on YouTube.
I've listened to ours on there because I'm a narcissist. I love listening to myself talk. I skip over the parts where John talks.
I was just going to say the same thing, you son of a gun.
I don't actually do that. It's more for administrative purposes, like where did I screw up? And it's usually where I screwed up. I'm lying. I listen to it because I'm a narcissist. But anyways, you can find John on Twitter at PodStreetGove. You can find me on Twitter at PodStreetBob. I don't know why I just hit that button. That was the wrong button. There's the outro music in the background. But
what button did you press?
I pressed the intro button, and it played from where we left off at the beginning of the show. But we're on the outro now, so we're good.
Okay.
In summation, this has been the Pod Street Bullies, folks, and I will leave you the way I always leave you. Let's go, Flyers.
Bye now.